Tito did not lose the opportunity of his life in a single day. He lost it little by little, every time he said, "Tomorrow." In the colony of purpose, everyone knew Tito. He was kind, likable, full of ideas. He was always talking about what he would do someday. Someday he would train with the best gatherers. Someday he would learn to read maps. Someday he would help Elias on the difficult routes. Someday he would prove that he too could carry something important. But that someday never came. When Mara asked him for help sorting seeds before dawn, Tito would answer, "Of course, tomorrow I'll come earlier." When Elias invited him to practice on the high paths, Tito would smile and say, "I'm tired today. Tomorrow I'll start for sure." When Don Salomon saw him sitting by the mouth of the tunnel, watching how others worked beneath the golden light of morning, he would ask, "Tito, what seed are you going to carry today?" And Tito would answer, "I'm thinking of something big, Don Salomon. I just need to get organized." The old aunt looked at him with tenderness, but also with sadness. "Be careful, son. Sometimes we call a plan what is really fear in disguise." Tito laughed so he would not have to listen. But deep down he knew the truth. He was not waiting for the right moment. He was avoiding starting. One morning, the great bell of the colony rang out with force. Every ant dropped its tasks and gathered in the Hall of Roots. The Mother Queen stood upon the main platform, holding a blue seed between her hands. "Children of the colony," she said in a firm voice, "a hard season is coming. The rains will arrive sooner than expected. We need to send a team to the Valley of the Blue Seeds. There grows a hardy crop that can feed many families through the difficult months." A murmur ran through the room. Tito felt his heart pounding against his chest. This was the journey everyone talked about. The most important mission of the year. Those who were chosen would learn routes, leadership, provision, and service. It was the opportunity Tito had claimed to be waiting for months. Don Salomon unrolled a list and began to call out names. Elias, Leah, Bruno, Dahlia, Naro. Tito straightened his back. He waited for his name, but Don Salomon folded the list. The meeting was over. Tito stood frozen, as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. Elias approached carefully. "Tito?" "It must have been a mistake," said Tito, trying to smile. "I wanted to go." Elias lowered his eyes. "Wanting is not always preparing." The words hurt him. Tito clenched his teeth. "Easy for you to say, when you were the one chosen," and he left before hearing any reply. He walked to his room and shut the door. There lay his tools uncleaned, his empty pack, a map of the Valley of the Blue Seeds folded on the table, and a list stuck to the wall that read, "Start tomorrow." He had written it 3 weeks earlier. Tito looked at each pending task, study the map, train for carrying loads, ask Don Salomon for advice, sleep early, organize the tools. None of them seemed enormous. None of them seemed impossible, but together they formed a mountain he had never wanted to climb. Then he understood something that broke his heart. He had not lost the opportunity that morning. He had lost it many times before. He lost it every time he chose comfort instead of discipline. Every time he said later when he could have done something small. Every time he confused intention with obedience. As evening fell, Mara knocked on the door. "Tito, it's me." He did not want to talk, but he let her in. Mara set a basket of seed bread on the table. She did not scold him. She did not say, "I warned you." She only looked around the room in silence. "I wanted to go to the Valley of the Blue Seeds too when I was young," she said. Tito looked up. "You?" "Yes, I prepared for weeks, but before we were to leave, my father fell ill. I had to stay and care for our home. I lost the journey, but I did not lose my peace because I obeyed love." Tito bowed his head. "I didn't lose mine out of love. I lost it out of excuses." Mara sat down beside him. "That's why it hurts differently. Losing an opportunity by doing the right thing leaves tears, but it also leaves rest. Losing it by not doing what you knew you should do leaves a very heavy question. What would have happened if I had started in time?" Tito felt a knot in his throat. "I thought I still had time." Tomorrow is a good place for hope, said Mara, but a bad place for obedience. Before leaving, she pointed to the list on the wall. You can't recover all your yesterdays, Tito, but you can still decide what kind of ant you will be tonight. When Mara left, Tito sat staring at his tools. For the first time, he did not make a grand promise. He did not say, "Now I'm going to change my whole life." He simply took a cloth, cleaned one tool, and put it in its place. Then another, and another. Later, he went to the loading yard, where the team was preparing to depart. Elias was checking his pack. Leah was adjusting a lamp. Bruno was loading provisions. Tito arrived with a box of clean tools. "I came to help," he said. Elias looked at him in surprise. "The team is already complete." "I know. The inspection is almost finished." "I know that too. But I want to help, even if the reward is no longer mine." No one said much. Tito began to check ropes, arrange stakes, clean lamps, and load sacks. Shame stung him, because every task showed him that he really could have done it before. It was not impossible. It only required starting. Don Salomon came over when the night was already deep. "I see your tools have woken up," he said. Tito let out a sad smile. Too late for this departure, perhaps. Not necessarily too late for your life." Tito breathed deeply. "I'm afraid, Don Salomon. I always talk about what I'm going to do, because while I talk, I can imagine that I'm capable. But when the moment comes to start, I'm afraid to fail. So I say, tomorrow, and for a while I feel that I haven't failed yet." Don Salomon placed an ordinary seed in his hand. "Putting things off does not protect you from failure, son. It only robs you of the chance to grow before you face it. Look at this seed. It seems small, easy to ignore. That's how the future looks when it arrives disguised as a daily task. If you neglect it, you don't only lose the seed, you lose the harvest hidden inside it." Tito closed his hand over the seed. "And how do I begin?" "Finish one thing. Not all of them. One. When your mind says tomorrow, answer it with a small action today." Tito went back to the table and finished checking the stakes. He counted them, tied them, and wrote, "Ready for the northern route." He did not feel pride. He felt peace. A small peace, but a true one. At dawn, the team set out. Tito watched them move away along the path between damp roots and golden leaves. Part of him wanted to lock himself in his room and sink into sadness. But he touched the ordinary seed in his pocket and decided to do something different. That day, he asked for a task in the storehouse. Mara gave him the provision records. It was slow work, without applause. Tito wanted to leave it for later. His mind began the old song, "Do it later. You're tired. It doesn't matter that much." But he took a sack, weighed it, and wrote it down. Then another, and another. He did not fix his whole life that day, but he finished one task. Over the following days, he did the same. He cleaned a stretch of channel. He arranged ropes. He studied a route with Elias when the team sent its first signal from afar. He asked forgiveness where he had failed. Some still did not trust him, and that hurt. But Tito understood that character is not rebuilt with speeches, but with small pieces of evidence repeated in silence. Then came the storm. The rains arrived early, with fury. The sky darkened, and the tunnels trembled under the blows of the water. From the dawnstone came an incomplete signal, a flash, and then nothing. The team in the valley might be in danger. The Mother Queen gathered the guides. They needed to know which shelters had provisions, which routes were still open, and which channels could drain the water. Mara called Tito. "You organized the records. Are there lamps in shelter 3? Tito closed his eyes and remembered. "Yes, 4 lamps, 2 dry ropes, and provisions for 2 days. A guide asked, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I checked it twice." Don Salomon pointed to the map. "And the northern channel?" Tito swallowed hard. "I cleaned it yesterday. If a large branch hasn't fallen, it can still hold." The Mother Queen looked at him gravely. "Can you guide the crew to that stretch?" Tito felt afraid. But this time he did not run. "Yes, and if there's something I don't know, I'll say so." He went out into the rain with the rescuers. The mud swallowed his boots. The water struck his face. Every step was hard. But Tito knew the channel, because he had cleaned it with his own hands. He pointed out loose stones, dangerous roots, and bends where the water ran stronger. In the distance, they saw a faint light. It was the team. They reached shelter 3, and there were Elias, Leah, Bruno, and the others, soaked and exhausted, but alive. They had lost part of their provisions crossing a ditch. Tito entered the shelter, searched behind a wall of bark, and found exactly what he had recorded: 4 lamps, 2 dry ropes, and food for 2 days. The guide sighed with relief. "This saves our night." Elias looked at Tito. "Did you check this?" Tito nodded. "Yes." "Thank you." That word weighed on him more than any applause. They were not thanking him for what he had promised. They were thanking him for something he had done, and Tito understood. A small task done in silence can become light for others on the day of the storm. When they returned to the colony, the Mother Queen spoke before everyone. "Today we learned that foresight saves lives. And we also saw that an ant can begin again when it stops hiding behind its excuses." Then she called Tito and handed him a blue seed. "This does not represent what you lost. It represents what you can still cultivate." Tito received it with tears in his eyes. That night he returned to his room, tore off the sheet that read, "Start tomorrow," and put up a new one. He wrote only one word: "Today." From then on, Tito did not become perfect. He still had difficult days. He still heard within himself the comfortable voice of the excuse. But he learned to answer it with a small action, because the future is not destroyed all at once. It is destroyed with small daily excuses, and it is built the same way, with a seed carried today, a task finished today, a simple obedience today. That is why whenever some young ant said, "Tomorrow I'll start," Tito would sit down beside it, place an ordinary seed in its hand, and answer, "Then let's do something small today." Because tomorrow may hold beautiful dreams, but purpose always begins in the obedience of this day.